So my girlfriend doesn't know when I'm being serious and when I'm joking around. And to be fair, in this surreal society, you have to do both. You have to kind of meld them together to cope with the immense amount of liberalism that there is. And I'm making this video to reflect upon that because I might even consider running for politics myself if Nathan Explosion can. And I see no reason why we can have one kind of self-awareness but not another. And he is self-aware in the sense that he knows he's a liberal and he knows about his own depravity and he has come to terms with that. Just as, if you want to combat that or if you want to at least have another option, you have to be self-aware of the liberalism too. You have to be self-aware of yourself and of others. You have to self-criticize, as all these stupid neo-Maoists and shit say. This is the problem. America, Canada, UK, Western society has not come to terms with the fact that just because something comes from Marxist philosophy does not in itself mean that, oh my god, it's the Soviet Union, oh my god, no. Fucking communism is just a philosophy the same way as nihilism or existentialism or absurdism or objectivism, anything like that. To just act like you have to ignore Marx is to say, oh, let me ignore Aristotle. Oh, let me ignore, Plato. It's dumb, but that's part of liberalism too. Nathan's ideology is in itself classical liberalism. The tenets of what he wants or what he says he wants is a very classical liberal thing. That's why he calls himself a neo-quasi-reactionary, because it's more of what you used to see as far as liberalism goes, rather than what it has adapted to. This possession of your child, this total sense of self, that you have the right to these things because you own them as a sense of property, as a sense of, self-worth. It's a very classical liberal concept. There's no identity politics. There's no, watered down class disparity bullshit. It's just pure individualism. And that is classical liberalism. And you see it in society. When you go around in society, they make classical liberal argument points. For example, against incels, there are a lot of very classical liberal arguments made. Oh, you just need to work out more, or you need to shower more, or you need to, work on your personality. Shit like that. These are very classical liberal ideas that somehow all of the burden falls on the individual despite participating in a society under society's restrictions, under society's nose, where they are molded into the being that they are, given their material conditions, and given the collective effort by everyone to make them like this, but somehow, as an individual, they and they alone are responsible for their circumstances. That's impossible. But on the same notion, incels could be a neoliberal ideal, just like trans activism, just like Black Lives Matter, just like fucking white nationalists. Yes, white nationalists are an id pole. The idea that we aren't, individually responsible for our well-being, but at the same time not acknowledging class dichotomy. White nationalists, Black Lives Matter, trans activists, whatever, they all have in common that they don't acknowledge class dichotomy. They don't say, I'm in these conditions because I am not an elite. I am not someone that has good financial standing. I am not. They might use those as excuses to why their life sucks, but they're not saying that they are part of a certain caste that would separate them from these issues. More so, it's because I'm a white male, or the problem is that you're a white male, or all this other stupid shit that amounts to distraction. It's distraction from the fact that your society is collapsing because you have no moral aptitude, you have no acknowledgement of your disparities, of your issues, and you refuse to do anything about them. And why would you? because that would interfere with the growth of capitalism. That would interfere with production. That would interfere with labor abuses. That would interfere with all kinds of things. Both classical and neoliberalism have the rightful place in preserving capitalism. And I'm not saying that to, abolish the state, workers of the world unite, and all this other gay shit. I'm saying that because that's the way it is. That's the way it is, because doesn't matter whether you like it or not. Doesn't matter if you think that, Stalin killed a bajillion people. It doesn't matter. What matters is that neoliberalism and classical liberalism are indeed real concepts and real ideals practiced day in and day out to far extents, to the point of it's almost on a subconscious level, and we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. I think more so I'm guilty of neoliberalism than of classical liberalism. But all in all, these concepts help preserve capitalism in their own deranged ways. And what he wants is to go back to a more classical liberal idea of rights, of practices, and a lot of people are struggling against it because they're used to neoliberalism. They're used to the idea of their rights come from all these gendered issues, all these ethnic issues, all these religious issues. When you talk about rights, for example, freedom of speech, you never hear I have the right to freedom of speech. What you hear is Christians have the right to freedom of speech, and they're being censored by YouTube. Or Muslims have a right to freedom of speech, and they're being, bullied by, fucking European neo-Nazis or whatever. It's always them. A group is being oppressed. But when an individual is oppressed, nobody cares. But it is classical liberalism when it's up to the individual to do something about it. When an individual isn't getting his needs met, he needs to work harder. He needs to, do this differently or do that differently. He needs to suck it up and just think positive. That's a very, classical liberal concept. But why are we being told to be classical liberals when our environment is neoliberal? That's an inherent contradiction. It's either one or the fucking other. It's like I said about moderators. I don't care which one you pick, but you're gonna have to pick.